I cannot thank Claire enough, Claire, for doing this with us. We're really, really thrilled to have her. So, I'd like to thank the folks at Epson, Pro Photo Daily, American Photography, and Photo Shelter for always being by our side. Um, we have Claire Rosen tonight. One thing you'll see in the chat room, we're going to put Claire's website where you can get her books, prints, anything you need from her. So take a peek there. You'll also see our YouTube channel for projection. So if you can subscribe to our channel, we'd really appreciate that. And with that, I give you Claire Rosen. Claire, it's all yours.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be sharing some of my work with you and just really excited to see so many friends in the chat. I feel a little bit rusty because I've been over here in Lavender Land and haven't been talking about my work as much, but I'm really excited to I'm going to share my most favorite project, The Fantastical Feast, and then thought I would just share a little bit of my influences and how I think about my work and sort of projects that have been important to me on my photographic journey and what I'm doing now, and a little bit about this farm. And I'm going to give you a little tour of my studio space, hopefully slowly to not make anybody nauseous. So I guess I will start sharing my screen and just bear with me. All right. So this will actually is a project that many of you are familiar with, but I like to sort of set the stage with it because it's really been the adventure of my lifetime to work on this project. And for those that are not familiar with my work, I traveled all over the world. And I just realized that it's been about a decade of working on this project where I set tables up in locations where these animals will be and invite them to dine. I take a lot of pictures over the course of the meal, and those pictures are then later composited together in Photoshop to create a final image. And I work with a really brilliant retoucher named Rebecca Manson at the post office to sort of make them perfect. But I really have loved animals from a very young age, and to be able to sorry, everybody's dinging in and it's giving me a little getting a little distracted. But I think in doing this project, it really gave me such a greater appreciation for the natural world and the sort of individuality of these creatures and the intelligence of um, of animals all over, great and small. Not sure why my thing is freezing.
And Claire, can you just set us up? Like, what inspired this? What light bulb went off for you? This is what I'd like to do.
I think there's a really clear thread from the time I was very little, given my interests, but um, the whole sort of dinner concept actually started with a commercial assignment in England. And I was working for a chandelier designer who made these incredible whimsical chandeliers out of found objects. And she had an array of locations for me to pick from, and one of them was a pig farm. And she said that we had to photograph by a certain date because the pigs were going to market. Um, and so, in a sort of macabre way, we thought, what if we sort of set a table for them, sort of like their last supper? And it was filled with cakes and donuts and all manner of things. And I think that we sort of expected it to be this raucous scene that they would sort of devour everything and cause chaos and act sort of like animals. But I was really surprised at how like sort of delicate and dainty they were, where they'd finish like one whole donut or cake and then sort of every crumb and then move to the next one. Um, and I had been doing a lot of commercial work then, but the work that I got when I was with animals always was always happiest when I was around them. Um, and it was a couple years later that I was in Thailand with Ron, and there were these lar gibbon monkeys that you could go and sort of pay to have your picture taken with, like in the tourism industry. And um, we arranged to meet them after their shift and bought every banana from every smoothie stand on the island. And I had shown them the sort of pig picture and said, could we make something like this with your monkeys? And we did the shoot, and I really, again, like this exhilaration of being able to work with these animals. It was so thrilling to be around them. And I shared the picture with a woman who worked at the concierge who I'd become kind of friendly with. And she's like, this is such a cool picture, but it's really sad. They cut those monkeys' tongues out so they don't scream for the tourists. And that really hit me in my stomach in a way that still is so upsetting. And I just kept thinking, like, I was so excited to see those monkeys and I was so excited to be able to be near them, but I would never want to participate in something that would harm a creature like that. And I feel like many people probably feel the same way. And the next couple of pictures that I did were with elephants that were in a circus, with ducks that were for food, with honeybees. And with each animal that I came across, there was some tension point with people. There was thing, some issue that they faced. And when I started to look at like all of the sort of situations that animals found themselves in, it was almost overwhelming, the like sort of sheer number of things of sort of ways in which we really exploit them. And it became kind of overwhelming to look at each issue. And I really felt like if we had an overall sort of mindset shift in the way that we think about these animals, and if we recognized the sentience that they had, the intelligence that they had, the individuality that they had, that many of these sort of different issues would go away because we just wouldn't treat them in that way. Um, so I thought of the icon of the banquet and the sort of very recognizable format of the Last Supper as a really good symbolic representation to anthropomorphize these creatures and encourage people to think of them more humanely. And that this could be a sort of whimsical entry point to conversation about all of the varying issues that these creatures face. So, from very little honeybees, where I sat at the table with all of my dollhouse furniture, to giant elephants, each picture was sort of an adventure in its own right between dreaming up what the table would look like, finding all of the materials for it, sourcing the animals, working out with their caretakers what the safest and most effective way to make the picture happen, and then sort of setting everything up really meticulously and really surrendering all control to see what these creatures will do when they get to the table, and usually being really delighted and pleasantly surprised by the results that were captured.
And do you collaborate with an expert on each given animal, as this is what they like, this is what they don't like, any of that? I mean, as far as, you understanding the subject matter even more?
Each animal is a little bit different, but I think part of what I am so drawn to this is just how much I get to learn about these creatures. So, in some cases, for example, these I actually got to hatch in my house in Pennsylvania, and they were gifted to me by a local entomologist who's trying to raise the populations of moths in the area. Um, so, and then these were done with a caretaker in South Africa. So, often I've tried to ascertain like what time of day they'll be the most hungry, what their favorite food is, but also trying to understand the issues that they face and what their sort of unique personality traits are. hedgehogs. So these were part of a breeding program in Jordan where they are hoping to re-up the numbers in the early 1990s. They were actually extinct in the wild. So many royal families from surrounding countries have contributed Arabian oryx stock to re-up this population.
And Claire, is there a lot of bureaucracy that you have to deal with as far as going to some of these exotic places and getting these animals to these locations?
A lot of it is sheer luck. So I travel to them and then set the tables in a place that will be, the safest environment for them to be in. And I think initially, when I first started the project, I was working a lot more with, I was working with whatever I could find. Um, and it was really kind of a synchronistic, sort of opportunistic thing. And some of them I kind of can't even believe that they happened. For example, the last one, the oryx is, I had my is not going in the direction that I want it to go. Sorry.
Mhm.
Won't let me go back for some reason. Give me 1 second to just fix this. So initially, I think it was much harder to get access, and now that I have quite a few examples, it's a little bit easier for people to picture how it might turn out. Whereas when I first started, I think people thought I was a little nuts when I tried to describe that I wanted to throw, these dinner parties for animals and see what happened. Okay. Is my screen sharing again? No.
No, you stopped screen sharing.
Okay. Apologies.
That's good.
Now
All
you
right. Yeah. So, um, I really utilize my social networks in terms for how I get access to things. So I will often post on social media if I'm traveling somewhere. If anybody knows anybody that can help me connect to animal caretakers in the area, anytime that I was going to travel somewhere, I would do quite a bit of research on what animals were important to that region. So I went to go see my sister in Jordan, and it's a sort of like long story, but I was stranded in the desert and not able to connect with the person that was supposed to introduce me to these oryxes. And I was like sort of sitting at a coffee shop, just in misery, trying to decide whether to go home or not, because I'd like tried really hard to be able to get access. And just by sheer coincidence, the coffee shop owner was like, I couldn't help but overhear that you were looking for oryxes. What are you looking to do with them? And I explained the project and showed him the pictures, and he made a phone call. And within 8 minutes, his cousin, who worked at the sanctuary, showed up to take us to this location. So some of them really feel like very magical. And we all got on his truck and went into the desert. And I could imagine that story really could have gone a lot differently. So I feel like it's really lucky that it worked out in our favor. This was done with Howling Woods Wolf Rescue. There are folks that think that wolves will make good pets like dogs, but they really do not. So they take them because the sort of shelters would euthanize them.
And Claire, can you just give us a sense of the functionality piece? Your camera is set up, the timing, or just on any given one of these, just to give us a sense of how that works.
Sure. So the first thing is to sort of set the location and set the table up. And I usually do that without any animals around. So I set it up kind of as perfectly as I can get it. And I set my camera up and any lighting if I have it. And I do sort of blank plates of the scene so that I have sort of the coverage of everything empty. And then the animals are let into the space, and they wander about the table. And I always love there's like this sort of moment of disbelief when they get to the table where that's sort of like curiosity and like they're not really sure if it's for them, and then the like pure delight when they realize that they can eat what's on the table. Because I try to put things that are special or exciting for them. So they're really enthusiastic about it when they realize that they can eat it. And that always kind of cracks me up.
And the animals are dealt with handlers, or some of them are actually wild. I mean, how does that work?
It really depends on the animals. Each one is a little bit different.
Mm.
Some are really with their handlers. Some of the animals are shot one at a time for safety so that they don't fight with each other. These wolves had to come in their individual packs. So they're in packs of 3 or 4 naturally, but you couldn't mix the packs together because they would have fought over the food. So if they have handlers, they're always very close at hand. But a couple of them have been sort of with wild animals, and then it's just pure luck whether it works or not. And sometimes they don't work at all. I've set a couple of tables and the animals uh, won't come to eat at all.
So for the handlers, I mean, just to be part of a project like this must be so magical. Like, how did I end up here and this? I mean, do you like what kind of feedback do you get from the handlers?
I mean, I've been really lucky that people have been very enthusiastic about this project, and it certainly wouldn't happen without their expertise and their knowledge. And my friends that I have dragged around, Ron has been on a number of shoots. The monkeys really seem to like him, so
No surprise there. Yeah.
yeah, it's really feels like a collaboration that feels really special, especially with the animals too, because I feel like they have to participate. If they're not interested, then it doesn't work at all. But they do definitely get a kick out of doing it. So
You,
this brings me to an offshoot of the feast project that's a little bit newer, and these are sort of dinners for two, or animals on dates. And it's, I think, a sort of natural progression of the feasts and sort of COVID to some extent. Sort of stopped traveling around the world, stopped having big parties, and now and was just having sort of more quiet uh, dinners for two. But I think, just to go back to your initial question of like how I wound up here or what made me interested in this, I think looking back at my childhood and the influences and things that I just cherished as a young person, and the sort of aesthetic vocabulary that I developed and the things that I was interested in, really have left a very strong mark on the work that I make. And looking at it, the thread is sort of so clear that I feel like I almost couldn't make work different than the work that I make. So a very strong connection to my childhood favorite illustrators, Beatrix Potter, The Wind in the Willows. I still have like all of my childhood books. So when I, was thinking that I was being really creative with my animal dinners, I look back to things I was looking at when I was, 3 to 7 years old. And, they're all little animals, anthropomorphic animals
mm.
on adventures. Um, and you can
And how is the transition for you from being on location to being in these studio setups?
Um, I think that it's really interesting how the work sort of parallels your life. So I'm at home now and the animals are at home now. So these are little mice in a little study setting. And I think there's a bit more control being in a studio setting than being on location. And obviously being home, I have access to all my props and everything. So the gathering of materials is certainly a little bit easier, but there's something about the spontaneity of being on location and that sort of dance between what you want in your head and the resources that you can get, and the sort of on the fly problem solving that happens as you develop these sets, and how these pictures evolve from your mind into reality based on the set of circumstances that existed. And I think there's something kind of magic that can't be replicated in that. Whereas in the studio, I think you just have so much more control.
And for you, was it a challenge to learn lighting indoors versus outside?
Um, I think that my approach to lighting, whether being inside or outside, is similar, so it doesn't feel as different. Though I feel like obviously being outside and on location, your time of day really matters substantially more than when you're purely lighting things in a studio. So from a time flexibility standpoint, I would say that it's a little bit easier in the studio. But I think I look at a lot of painting, and I'm always trying to emulate that sort of surreal, painterly, kind of classic Dutch master lighting, whether I'm outside or in the studio, and sometimes I'm more successful at it than other times. But again, it's a sort of similar concept, and you can see these are sort of all the things that I've been looking at my whole life that I've been so drawn to, like the Victorian era, the pre-Raphaelite movement in painting, the Dutch masters, Audubon, fairy tales have had a huge influence. But sort of the surreal and the fantastical, I think I've always been drawn to. Reality has always been a little bit of a problem for me. So I do think that I've um, I've really wanted to create this magical world from my imagination and bring it forth.
Two questions in the chat room. Do you teach courses on creativity, not just from the photography standpoint, but just how you come to these ideas? And another question, does the lighting affect the behavior of the animals?
Those are 2 great questions. I do teach workshops, and I have a book that I have a slide of at the end called, Imaginarium: The Process Behind the Pictures, and I feel like my whole approach to all of art making and life really has very little to do with the technical aspects of photography. Like, I think that there are so many things that are important about your process that are universal to any, medium that you choose. And that art, I mean, for me, it's really they're sort of the 2 things that drive it are the things that I get out of it personally in doing it, the adventure of it, the things I learn, the way it feels fulfilling, um, that it's how I wanna spend my time and, what I wanna get to experience. And then I think the other part of it is, what kind of conversations you want to have with your viewer and what kind of impact you want to have when people look at your work. And I think that that doesn't necessarily matter whether it's photography or painting or cooking. I think that we need a much more expansive view of what, the creative arts looks like. And I think setting the conditions and foundations for that to be sort of like fruitful and innovative are the same. And the medium doesn't matter. So that's a long way to say, yes, I teach courses on creativity and the technical aspect. I feel like I shouldn't say this in a photography lecture, but the photography is like the least exciting bit of it for me. For
Mhm.
me, it's the coming up with the ideas, dreaming about things, thinking about how I'm going to make it happen, the, adventure to go and find the objects, the collaboration with the people that I meet, the travel, the anxiety of making it all come together and and I don't know, like, the clicking the button feels like it's everything that leads up to that that feels valuable, and everything that I do when I'm not taking pictures that informs the things that I wanna talk about and the things that I'm interested in and the things that I wanna dive deeper into. That, I think, is the sort of, like, artistry of curating your life, of, like, what you wanna spend your time doing and what you wanna, um, contribute, if that makes sense.
And just
Oh,
to be more
and
pointed,
yeah.
when you come to that realization, how is it going to happen? What
What
do
do you
you do? Like, all right, I have this idea. How is this going? I mean, do you go for a walk? Do you just start writing? I mean, like, what do you do?
Um, for me, it's a lot of mind mapping and journaling and then research. A lot of time researching what I can find, looking around at what I have. I love treasure hunting, so going to the antique store, as you'll see, I have a pretty bad habit that's, all over the place in here that you'll get a better look at in a little bit. Um, but yeah, I find like the act of going out and hunting is really what sparks the creative things. And it's like the things that I find and kind of evolving the idea in my head as I again negotiate this, like, what are my resources? Because for the most part, all my projects are self-funded. And so I always have needed to be like crafty and resourceful with the things that I have to try to achieve what I wanted. And that like kind of dance of it, I think is really the creative problem solving I find really engaging.
And can you work on more than one project at a time? Oh,
I'm always working on a lot of projects at once, and they all
okay.
require different energies. So obviously the feasts are, you know, out there, big production, a lot of moving parts, require a lot of energy. And then I also like to work on still lives alone in my studio where I have, a lot of meticulous control and can sit there and like move shells around a quarter of an inch and really um, be kind of meditative and quiet about it. And then I have projects that are just like ridiculous and for fun. I haven't done it as much recently since being on the farm, but I used to have a project called The Traveling Mouse when I was on all these adventures, and it was a rubber mouse mask that I would put on and do self-portraits and tourist sites. And it was just like a hilarious to me. I've all these really funny pictures of me as a mouse all around. So now I'm a country mouse, and I feel like almost ready to get back to that project.
Okay.
But you can see an example of kind of the style of mask, like the little frog in the picture here. That's a Jeremy Fisher
Mm.
thing. So yeah, it's quiet projects and big projects and just for fun projects and experimental projects because I feel like sort of out of play comes different and interesting things. And I think all the projects feed into each other and they all offshoot into this big web. I kind of wanted to share this project next. I don't know why my thing is not.
Yeah, one thing, but before you start on the next one, Claire, do you get input from, and I see Jeffrey's with you tonight, do you get input from other folks that this is marketable, this is resourceful, this would show this? Or are you in your own, space and you just do what you want to do?
Um, I mean, I definitely have a lot of people in the chat. I have some trusted uh allies that I am absolutely sending pictures to and saying, like, is this anything or do you think this is interesting? Usually it's like picking between two pictures, like, do you prefer this or do you prefer this? If I said this about them, would that make sense? So I think that your creative community is everything. And I think it's really hard when you get out of school, like sort of once you leave that sort of regular critique practice to build that for yourself as an independent artist and keep your community, because we're all so busy, but to really keep an active collaborative community of other artists that really understand your work and understand, sort of your voice and what you want to say and can provide constructive and honest feedback and criticism and tell you when something's not that good or it doesn't quite work in a way that allows you to evolve it into something else.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, but I guess I'm sort of floating alone on my own.
Yeah. Only because you just used the word floating. I was going to wait till later, but are we ever going to go into the water cloud? Claire?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm dying to do some underwater feasts. And and
That
Elizabeth, actually, when I was at the Nat Geo seminar, um, somebody promised me they would take me to do sharks if I could get to the Bahamas, but I don't know, I'm gonna have to be kidnapped from the farm to do that. But, I'd love to do octopus, I'd love to do seahorses, I'd love to I mean, I have a list, a million miles long of creatures that I would be so enthusiastic to throw a dinner party for. So if anybody has any friends at a aquarium near Philadelphia, I'm into it.
I have to say, Claire, the way you just answered that question with your enthusiasm, I actually got goosebumps. I mean, I really did because I can see that's like burning you now that you have your list. That's wonderful. And it's great that you can convey that. So I'm glad. So we all have something to push you along with.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like now at the farm, anytime I meet any of my neighbors, I'm like, so which kind of animals do you have at your farm? Ulterior motive. Uh,
Yeah.
I did sort of want to pivot to this project, the birds in front of wallpaper, which is a prior project to the feast, but only because I feel like it was a really pivotal, sort of formative project for me in terms of, I think, why I want to make this work. I was, doing quite a bit of fashion and commercial work after graduating from school. And it's funny, you kind of like see more and more animals sneak in with the fashion girls as time evolves. And I really think I just wanted to be around animals. And so it started with these sort of domesticated birds that were parrots that I had some parakeets. I think this is one of my parakeets. And so I went to my local pet store and asked them if I could sort of set up a portrait studio in their lobby. And I had gotten all of these wallpaper backgrounds, and um, I basically was almost like picking out outfits for them. I would like arrange the backdrops to match the birds in the pictures, and the I just really loved doing that project. Like, I loved being around the animals. I felt like so different from the work that I had been doing, which I think was like kind of boring and sort of derivative of other sort of commercial or fat stuff that I thought would be successful that would, get me a job in photography because I thought that's how you had to do it. But this felt so different, and I didn't really think that anybody would like it or care about it. It was like sort of so silly. But the it just really cracked me up, these birds with their, like, expressions and their portraits and how they all felt like individuals. So I put it out there and it got a fair amount of press, and in one of the articles, I was trolled by animal rights activists, and they said some pretty horrible things about me, and were really, really angry that I had used birds from a pet store. And, at the time, I was really horrified by this, and it was, because I thought of myself as an animal lover, and I was just, like, so upset, but it led me down this sort of rabbit hole of understanding the issues that these domesticated birds face. Like, people think that they're going to be these great pets, because, they're beautiful and people like to look at them, and so they get them, but they're really quite complicated emotionally, and if they're not provided the right environment, they really go nuts, and as a result, a lot of birds are surrendered annually, and I had no idea what a big problem it was. But it really changed the whole context of this project for me, and I started thinking about the wallpaper like the man-made interiors that we bring these animals into because they're beautiful and we like to look at them sort of for our pleasure and our enjoyment, but it's not really where they belong. Um, and it really changed the way I thought about my work in general, that this idea that it could be both decorative, but also a place to have conversations. I think, you know, being friends with people like Ron and a lot of like really wonderful and fabulous photojournalists that I've been fortunate enough to spend time with over the year. And I know you've featured a lot of them in your programming. I always really admired the work that they did and that they were really I guess I always felt like a little bit self-indulgent with my work initially, like that I did like a lot of self-portraits, like fairy tale self-portraits in big dresses running around in the woods. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and I certainly like loved doing it, but I don't know, it felt really a lot about me. Um, and I always admired that the journalists were able to like use their work to point or shed a light on something that they thought was important. And I thought that I might not ever like, I never thought that I could make work like that. Like, I didn't really like reality, and I definitely wasn't a good documentary photographer. Like, from the very beginning, I just wanted to, sort of set things up. But in thinking about this work this way and this opportunity to kind of use aesthetics and beauty and make something that was both decorative and could just be appreciated for that if you wanted to, but also had this place for conversation, maybe in a less aggressive way than sort of the angry fighting on the internet that you see, that could be something small that I could possibly contribute. And I started donating a little bit of my proceeds to organizations that rescue those birds. And then I went to Dubai for an exhibit, and I got to photograph the falcon collections there. And that opened up a whole nother world of the project with birds of prey, because they had such different personalities, like the owls and the falcons. It was just like such a different thing than the parrots that I had worked with before. And then during COVID, I did all of my neighbors' ducks and chickens in front of more like 12 backgrounds. So this kind of concept has evolved, but I think it was really sort of the foundation point of thinking about the work as this vehicle for conversation. So I think it really paved the way for the feast project and sort of how I think about my work in general across the board.
Yeah, and Claire, I mean, what do you do to protect the animals and yourself during, some of these shoots?
Well, all of the birds that I work with for this project are either domesticated birds or ambassador birds or educational birds or pet birds. So they're pretty used to being around people. But again, I wanted to just you did ask a question about the lighting and the animals. I do I do try to make sure that the environment around them is sort of darker, very quiet. I don't have a lot of people around, maybe their caretakers and maybe one other person, but I find having a lot of people can make them nervous. So, like the feast, I set everything up ahead of time, so they're really in this space for a very minimal amount of time. It's like a few seconds that they kind of move around, and they're sort of trying to figure out what you're doing, and I think they really know what's going on because they're very posing. Also, like they really are with you. Like they're so funny. Um, but I sort of have like a light box that goes around them, so they do feel like they're kind of in an enclosed space. And I don't, I obviously move very slowly, speak very low, calm, in a calm manner, and try to put out good vibes.
Mm.
But I'm working on a book of this project, and I just was going to share one or two spreads from that. So this is forthcoming. Um, and I'm really excited about it. And
Wow.
it's together. It's going to be a big coffee table book. Um,
Is
and
that self-published?
yeah,
Yeah.
so if I ever finish it, it's about a year behind what it's supposed to be, but I'm making
That
progress.
sounds right on time.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
coming. So, and then this is the project that I'm working on now, the Borough of Warwick. So these are animals in their homes, and they're mostly animals from around the farm with a couple of the exceptions, and I'll point those out. Um,
So to compose this in post, how long does that take, Claire?
Well, it's not really in post. It's these are doll houses that I stage and decorate, and then I put the animals in there.
Ah, okay.
And they hop around and again take a lot of pictures, and then the ones where they look the most like they're doing a human thing are the ones that I pick.
Okay.
Um, so
Uh,
they're only in there for a few moments. But I I picked I mean, I think this really came out of living here. I have such a sort of different appreciation for the habitats around us than I did growing up in sort of Montclair, New Jersey, where everything is kind of built up and the farm where I live is surrounded by about 1,000 acres of conserved land. So there's sort of wildlife all around us. And while this area is very protected, very close by, there's quite a lot of development going on. And I hadn't really appreciated what a heartache it was to sort of watch open space go from being open um, to lots and lots and lots of badly made houses. And I just kept thinking, like, what happens to all of the creatures that was their home that are sort of evicted? And these are all sort of small creatures that we consider pests that we don't really think that much of. So I was hoping that by sort of referencing our childhood sort of nostalgic illustrations and anthropomorphizing them, that it might make people think just a little bit more about the homes that are being taken away when we develop property, and even like how people treat their yards and the wild spaces they have around them, that they're still leaving a place for wild creatures to live.
you bring up an interesting topic there, and I'm wondering because so many photographers end up in this space of being an advocate for their subjects, right?
Mhm.
What, you know, where do you go with that? I mean, because I'm sure the thought has entered your mind, especially when you had your internet conversation with all these different people. How do you manage that in your head? This is wonderful. This is this. This is that. All these different things, and not get into that space of being, an advocate, all the way in, like so many photographers do in a beautiful way. And it's not bad or good. It's just how do you manage that for yourself?
I mean, I think I'm an imperfect person, and I think that these are conversations that are not black and white and kind of challenging to have. Like affordable housing is a big problem. It's not like, oh, you just shouldn't buy houses. Like a lot of the issues that these creatures face and that I think we face as a society are complicated. And I don't know that there's one like right side of the fence to stand on, but I do think that we need to start talking to each other more and be more creative in the way we think about these issues, because I think that that they need that kind of creativity and outside the box thinking to do things differently than we have been doing them. I think that it's incredibly challenging to be a person in this world and not have impact. Like our society has not set us up to live in a society in a sustainable way, and it's a very tangled web of things. And so I guess I don't necessarily feel comfortable or that it would be beneficial to say like we should do things this way. It's like an always evolving, and I feel like I'm always evolving and trying to be better than I have been, and trying to learn more and trying to understand more and trying to understand problems in a more holistic way. I do feel like a lot of times because of, we have short attention span with so much going on, and like just the headlines get out and the nuances of problems aren't really, you can't really fully flush them out. This is all a long rambling way to say like, I think through doing this work, like I'm learning a lot, and,
Mm.
and I'm learning how to be different and more mindful. Um, and I don't think it's always a straight line. So I wouldn't say I'm not an advocate. I think if I if my work can help in any way, I hope that it does. Um, and I do try to, give back financially and use them as fundraising tools, because I think that there's a lot of opportunity in that, because I do think that these are easier to hang on your walls than maybe some of the more like gruesome realities of showcasing the problem. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity here.
For
And
conversation.
also,
Yeah.
I also really think that there's a lot of opportunity just in the wide age range that this work can appeal to. Like, and I'm increasingly interested in that, in making artwork that can speak to children but is not dumbed down for them, that can speak across generations and that people can connect with. Um, so I don't know that I really answered your
No, you did. You did.
question.
I mean, you're always shedding skin. So listening to you, we get, your thoughtfulness on this. One question, technical question. Are you behind the camera or are you working with the trigger, with these shots?
For these ones, I'm behind the camera. The triggers I would like to use, and there's a couple animals that I'm thinking about it for in the future, but it's a little bit too slow.
Mm.
Thus far, it's been a little bit too slow for this work. Um, so this was done with some ambassador animals at a zoo that has a local, really nice educational program with animals that can't be released into the wild. So I traveled to them with all this small set stuff and build the sets there. It's pokey. Um, but I do think I always think about I've been really drawn to the Victorian era because of my
Yeah.
childhood and how I was raised, and that's really like an aesthetic I appreciate. And I think that that was really the height of this fascination with the natural world and this desire to like collect and document and own it and catalog it. And that sort of mentality that nature is here for us and our enjoyment. And I think that I maybe naturally like had that just as a person, and it wasn't until sort of doing this project, the first projects with the animals, that I really started to realize like I love them and I'm drawn to them and I'm fascinated by them, but like what is in their best interest, and do we always think about that, or even know what that is, like the best situation for them to be in. So I feel like I've had to like curb and modify my behavior also.
And what is your process after the shoot? What do you do?
After the shoot, a lot of cleaning up, but the downloading, and then it's really like agonizing over like, because I take so many pictures, and I really trying to find the one that really says what I want to say in the picture and has the mood and has all of the bits to it. And so that can be a really kind of tedious and time consuming process. So for the feasts, I do kind of mock up layouts of what the whole thing will look like, um, and sort of do a rough thing. And then I'll share it with my retoucher, and Beck will sort of make everything perfect. For these ones, I've been working on them more myself, so it's just sort of hours in Photoshop at times, just, you know, making sure everything looks exactly how I want it to.
And there's got to be a case when you're shooting, whether it's these studio shots or on location, where a certain animal has sort of real charm,
They
right?
all have real charm.
Right. I mean, like, but there's got to be one or two, that really stand out. Like, I get what you're doing, Claire. You and I connect.
I mean, I really love this porcupine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, it's funny because I do think, like, in the age of, I mean, I wonder about this project now in the age of AI and the age of being able to just like manipulate things. Or some people think like I shot the animals at, like in a studio or a zoo and then put them at the table. Like, why go through everything to do it in this way? But that's the part that I love, like the doing it that way, the experience, of actually being there, of not knowing what's going to happen, and of the connections that I make with these creatures. It's like so thrilling for me, to be around them. I don't know. And I think I've always been that way since I was very little. Like I it's funny, like I loved being at the zoo and the circus and the Museum of Natural History, surprisingly. And now I think like that's sort of weird that I was like really love the Museum of Natural History because they're not alive,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess as you move forward and you do more and you're selling prints, I mean, is part of the pitch immediately, these are all in camera, right? I mean, it's not AI because I mean that becomes a challenge, right? I mean, for everyone.
yeah, I don't know. It's like I really don't love even talking about the process of how I do them because to me, it's not really the point. It's like once you're talking about like cameras and Photoshop and how many animals were, it's like the magic is not there anymore. Like
Yeah.
that's conversation I want to have is like, how can we do better for these creatures? Like
Right.
how, you know, what are their lives like? What small action can I take that might improve something in this sort of like tangled world we live in.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't I think it becomes less magical when you start talking about all of the, well, how
Okay.
did you do it and all of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I know people want to know, so I'm not.
No, it's fine.
And then I found these little
Wow.
cats in the woods and in a rusty bucket. And there were three girl cats. So I was never a cat person before, but now I'm completely obsessed with them. So we've been working on this project together. Um, and they're just kind of funny. They're very artistic, like to
Yeah.
encourage. all the-
These remind me of those the cat illustrations from years and years ago. They used to be postcards.
Yeah,
Uh,
Wainwright.
I,
But also, there was a guy in the Victorian era in Reading, Pennsylvania. I have he was really here. Did anybody have the four little kittens or Toodles and their friends? And he did all these in
yeah,
Reading,
yeah, yeah.
Pennsylvania in the Victorian. Yeah, he and his like
Uh,
secretary sewed all the clothes for him. So,
wow.
which I give her a lot of credit because I don't think there's any way I could get clothes on these little monsters. No, but they're really funny. So this is what I've been doing in my spare time with my,
Yeah, Robin has all those postcards as well. She
yeah,
lets us know.
you bet. Okay, so then I guess here's the farm. So as I said, we moved here 8 years ago, and it's a historic property from 1738. It's the site of the third oldest iron furnace in Pennsylvania, and it was founded by a woman named Anna Nutt, which is my most favorite bit of history about the farm because she seems really cool. So here are
Wow.
the lavender fields, and artists come and paint and make work in the fields. In addition to us, obviously, harvesting it for a product line, and we make all sorts of stuff here. And then we have a gallery space. Um,
So how did we decide to get a farm? I mean, give us a little bit of your
our
family's.
mind. Yeah,
What's that?
lost our minds now. Um, well, yeah, I feel a little naive about what farming entails. It's really an incredible thing. So working on a project about that. I, idolized Beatrix Potter and wanted to, always kind of had a dream to live on a farm and be able to rescue a lot of animals and have them, be able to make work about them. And my dad was getting ready to retire and he wanted to live in the countryside. And so we looked for about 2 years at maybe 87 different properties before we came across this one. And admittedly, it was not the original intention. We were supposed to be downsizing, but that didn't happen at all. We it's a big it's a big project, but one that really felt like a once in a lifetime opportunity. When we got here, it was like quite overgrown and crumbling, a lot like the secret garden, but just like endless possibilities, and so much potential that that continues to evolve, and it feels almost like an extension of my whole art practice, as I'm here with my family and we are, working on restoring. There are about 13 historic structures on site, all that all that needed some attention. So it's been a really big project, but kind of an incredible thing. And we've had just the most incredible interaction with the community here. And I think one of the unexpected but most amazing surprises of opening this gallery space here was just the diversity of people that come through this space, from different backgrounds and all different ages, and that there are many people that have never stepped foot in a traditional gallery space that come and look at work here. And I think that that is really interesting to me in terms of being able to have these conversations, that I'm not just talking to other artists. I do feel that sometimes when you're in gallery settings, that a lot of people that attend are collectors or other artists, other photographers, and that you don't necessarily have as many, I would say, like regular people, but people that aren't in the arts. So I think to be able to present work in that context feels really exciting to me, and that the space feels very immersive, and and I try to do more sort of interactive things in this space. And we've had exhibits in the woods and outside, and just sort of rethinking about the exhibition space in terms of making something more experiential for people. And I really think that there's a lot in there that I'm really fascinated by and really interested in. So that's taken a lot of my focus. And I'm building a artist residency program. So we have guest artists come and make incredible things here that are sort of looking at work that's at the intersection of art and agriculture and conservation and history, and like how they can work and be inspired by this site. And then we present that to the community, which has been really um, my favorite thing about moving here. And then see, this is my studio. But I wonder if I should just like spin you around a little bit.
Yeah, do that.
So I'm gonna stop my screen share. Okay, let's see.
Slowly.
So just tell me if yeah, don't get car sick. So all my weird stuff is here, full of inspiration. And then this is some work from last year's art show on the wall.
And Claire, I mean, how much time do you get to spend in there being you're on a working farm?
None. We joke that actually I have this really beautiful studio now, and I get a lot less work done because I'm always just cleaning it and rearranging it.
There you go.
And because a lot of people come through here, I feel like it has to look good.
Looks
I
great.
need to make like another secret studio somewhere else that I can hide out in. So I don't know if you can see everything all over. Yeah.
Beautiful. That a loft space also up above?
No,
I see the ladder.
yeah,
That's why.
it's just to get to the top of that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to balance your responsibilities, and it's definitely something that I'm trying to figure out currently, and I haven't quite nailed it yet. So it's a work in progress, but we do a really great they do a local studio tour here annually, and I feel like I try to change the show every year for that. So that feels like a good like bench point
Mhm. Are you
to
guys hiring?
am I what? Yes. Yes, we are definitely. So here's my book. I
Right?
guess here's my book and there's my me. So I guess that was a good time to spin you around.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Yeah, we'll put your website address in there so people can look for your book, your prints, all of that. Jay will do that straight away.
Great.
There it is. So
Um,
what's next? What's on the horizon, Claire?
so I have to finish my bird book. I have
Okay.
to finish my bird book. And I'm just really intrigued by books in general. I didn't get to show you this. My friend Sarah, who's an incredible artist, and on this call is I think she's in the chat, maybe she's here. She's an unbelievable artist, but she made me these like incredible or like giant portfolio books.
Wow.
And so I just want to make like giant books. And I want to do one of the feasts, and the bird book's going to be like a regular commercial book, but I'm hoping to do a big one as well. But like you just
Mm,
it's cool. Um, and I have a feast one. There's something, I think there's something really interesting about like turning the page and like having this artwork reveal itself that's different from walking up to it.
right.
So I'm really interested in the books right now. So the bird book first, um, and then the feast book.
Yeah. So when does a subject end for you, or does it end? Like the feast. I mean, is there a time where I've got it,
It's a good question because, I thought the bird thing was done a couple times and then I like have kept going.
right?
So, I I do kind of feel like the book sort of closes the page on it.
Right.
Um, but you never really know how things evolve and come about and what like it's funny. See all of these threads come back around repeatedly over and over again. So um I don't know. I have millions of ideas. I want to do a project on farming. I want to do a project on insects. I want to like there's no end to the things I want to do. I just need to figure out time and help and all the things that everybody juggles in their lives.
How
Um
do you manage the burn? The burn, like I got to get in the water. I've got to do, a feast shot in the water. How do you deal with that? Like, could I imagine at some point it's gnawing at you, right? Like, and the feast maybe project doesn't get done until that piece is there, right?
yeah, I mean, it's tough. I definitely am it's funny like it's such a dramatic word to say like agony, but I do feel like in
Yeah.
agony I'm not doing my work. So I mean it's a good thing we farm lavender because it's like, a mood elevator and an anti so I'm like huffing lavender all the time. But no, I think the drive is good and important because why else would we do this crazy stuff if you didn't have that? But I'm trying to look at the whole picture and I have a lot of goals for this farm. So I'm just trying to make it all happen, but it's hard.
I have to say, we're doing this for many years, and I've never seen a better comment in a chat room
Uh-oh.
than from Lori. Can't you see the fairy dust around her head? I mean, that is so sweet. That is so, so nice. But yeah, I mean, you're incredibly inspirational. That's so nice. And Lori Stewart is a dear friend?
She's a friend of the farm. Yeah.
Oh, she is. Okay, great. Great, great, great. What a nice, I mean,
I
she gets you.
Yeah. I mean, I count myself incredibly lucky to be able to do this work and live in this place and have these incredibly supportive people around me in both my family and my friends, like all of you that have shown up for me tonight. It really means a lot. And I don't think anybody can do any of this work or, get through this life without that. So I feel lucky.
It's yeah, that's I think everyone who's here gets you, and now and people who didn't know you have now been inspired by you, and that's that's really a wonderful gift to give out without even trying. I mean, you just shedding your skin for us. If anyone has any questions, you could either put it in the chat room or Jay can unmute and you could just jump in. But this was just a great night, Claire. I cannot thank you enough for doing this. And if you scan through the chat room, you'll see a lot of wonderful comments.
Oh,
Um, there's something nice from Peggy there, and it's really very nice. And so mostly from here on in, we're finishing. We're trying to finish projects,
yes,
right?
really.
And
Projects.
that's the life's work, right? It's just finishing. Yeah.
Vámonos.
Yeah. Do you do tours? You do tours of the farm as well, is that right?
Yeah, we do. We have a little farm store, and then when the lavender's blooming, we do all sorts of activities on the hilltop with the lavender, from harvest to picnics, painting, photography, lots of fun stuff. And we do some fun workshops as well. And I'm hoping to expand our workshop offerings.
So, I mean, it was just a great, was it serendipity that you guys just ended up in this farm and it sort of, jump started everything again, right?
Been
From
a
a career
wild
standpoint? What's
ride.
that?
A wild ride, but I feel like the threads, in hindsight, like all the threads connect in a really wonderful way.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Yeah, there's some really great questions and comments in there.
So we have been fortunate to have gone to the farm.
Hi.
How are you? And I must say that the cookies are absolutely amazing as well.
Oh my
So
God.
Okay.
My mom,
Everything.
I should just
Everything
have her as a
makes-
collaborator. So for all the art exhibits, she does themed cookies based on the artwork. And
Wait, is this mom here?
my mom works of art with the culinary prowess is exceptional and delicious. And it's so funny to see her take my work and then interpret it in cookie form.
Is that your mom there on the Vessi?
No.
No. Okay.
Oh my God.
Lavender cookies, yes.
Yeah, we need to do that. No, but like for the little burrow, she did like little frog cookies and frogs in little rooms. It was really pretty good.
So it's a sort of an all-in for everybody on the farm.
Yeah. And whether they like it or not, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
No,
It's
they're fabulous, and they're so creative in their own rights, and have created their own worlds in different spaces on the farm.
beautiful. Well, I'm you now, Claire, you have a standing offer to come back and show us the next book and the next project and on and on and on.
Well, you're all invited to the farm also.
Okay. But, yeah, Catherine was saying what an unbelievable experience. Yeah, so we want you back all the time. Again, if anyone has any questions or comments, or just want to say hello to Claire, now is your time. But I cannot tell you how much we appreciate. We've been trying to do this for the longest time, and we did it. So yeah,
Thank you so much, Frank.
no, this
Thank you,
is
everybody, for coming and spending your evening with me.
great. So Claire, I give you the last word of the evening.
The last word of the oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Send us off with something inspirational if we haven't gotten it already.
Oh my God, Frank, put me on the spot.
Listen, that's the price of admission.
Well, I don't know. I'll just say I've been thinking a lot about the point of everything.
Okay.
No, but I mean, I think we only have one shot at this life, and I think that you can really make it extraordinary, but you have to dedicate yourself to that. But I think it's worth it. Um, but I can't say, I can't think of, I'm going to bumble all over it, but think that I hope that everybody tries to add a little bit more magic into their lives, because I think it's hard right now to be in reality. I'm not saying to disregard all the things that are happening around you and around the world, but I do think we could use some magic and kindness and joy and conversation, togetherness, regardless of people's belief systems. So that's, I guess, what I'll leave you with.
No, nothing's better than that, Claire.
Charlotte said more fairy dust.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. So again, I thank everyone for coming in. You should know, October 16th, we have Eric Miola, who will be presenting, who's another wonderful guy and incredible photographer. Fairy dust is the best. Yes. So, and also, if you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be great. And Claire, I thank you so much for doing this. This is really, you've inspired all of us on a lot of different levels. So I think we're all better off for this evening. So thank you, and everybody